Welcome into the Fantasy Guides podcast. My name is Andrew Teuscher, and I am joined today not by the owner and operator of Fantasy Guides. Instead, I have two excellent gentlemen who we find ourselves hanging out with here often. Current college football sicko and former player himself, Jesse Preston, joins us, as well as Jacob Rhodes, Fantasy Guides contributor. Jesse, are you just out here feeling like a proud dad right now? Big proud dad vibes?
Yeah, for sure. We got a win in the quarterfinals of our baseball league. So I think my son was 2 for 2 with a walk and scored all 3 times to win. We won 13-3. So we're on the podium. We'll see what happens in the next couple days here. You got to win still 3 more games to win the championship. But yeah, no, it was a proud dad moment. Lots of family came and watched this tonight, and it was a really fun game.
Jesse's riding a high, and we'll see if we can either crash it or keep it going. Jacob, how are you doing so far? Excited about the iPhone drop you were just talking?
Yeah, that Apple event was great. I'm a big geek about that technology stuff. I sat there and watched the whole event. So yeah, very excited about that stuff. Excited to be back on. I've been gone for a couple weeks. So happy to be back.
We're glad to have you back. And the future is now, because apparently you can just write on your iPad a math equation and AI will just solve it for you without any other use or any other thought or calculators. It's insane. I'm scared AI is going to take over. But something that AI can never take over is our happiness playing best ball fantasy on Underdog. So make sure you're heading over there. You were indulging yourself using our promo code GUIDES, which will get you a deposit bonus, but even better, a free draft guide. So go in there, get you a draft guide that Steven, myself, Jacob, AJ, Jesse, I don't know if you have any contributions in there right now, but I know we are all working super hard on it. And so, yeah, go get you that for free just by playing Underdog. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, whatever the cool kids are doing these days, because we've got some excellent content coming your way, including today, which we are going to talk about some strength of schedule, which hold your phone, don't unclick, don't stop listening. Strength of schedule is important. Jesse had the idea to bring it up because Steven put out a post recently about it before he departed us to go on a trip to a place that doesn't have self-service, which I don't know how he is surviving. So we are going to chat up some of that stuff about strength of schedule and what it means for fantasy. We're also going to talk about some winners and losers from the strength of schedule. But first, got to start with some news. And some news that hits near and dear to my heart, unfortunately. Jacob, I think you've been combating on this whole Anthony Richardson versus Kyler Murray and some other guys. So I'll let you lead your response to this one first. Anthony Richardson is experiencing some pains in a shoulder that may or may not have been surgically repaired recently and might be problematic because he likes to throw himself around like a rag doll and just throw a 250-pound body on the ground. Jacob, should I be concerned?
I would be a little concerned. He wasn't exactly the healthiest of specimens last year. He hits the ground hard, and if he's having pain in his right shoulder, I mean, that's where he was taking some of the hits last year. So I do like the guy. I don't want that to be misconstrued here, but his injuries are already becoming a concern. He kind of hits the ground like Mike Williams does, and we've seen how that pans out. But the quarterback level, it's different. We'll see what he does. There's a lot of time for him to get healthy and be ready week 1. I have no doubt he will be, but stay on the field.
Jesse, should I be concerned that my quarterback with shoulder issues just gained 10, 15 more pounds and might have gravity work harder against him?
It might be ink that's weighing him down. I don't know if you saw the back piece that he got done in the off season, but maybe that's he's carrying some weight there. Great tattoo work. I've been concerned. I'm a Florida Gators fan, so I've followed this guy all the way through. I even knew about him as a high school recruit because he was a big time recruit coming out.
Of course, you did.
He was injured a lot in college too. He missed a lot of games, and so yes, this is concerning. I think the message I dropped into the group chat was, if he misses games this season, it's a full on trend at that point. It's going to be really hard not to just kind of put him in that injury prone category because he struggled to play entire seasons at Florida. And that was always kind of the knock coming out. He struggled with accuracy, and then he he wasn't always available, and you need him to be available, especially if you're a fantasy football owner and you need points from him. So hopefully this isn't a big deal. Hopefully it's just, he needed some rest. And I mean, we have a lot of time for him to rest up and be good to go. But I will say that is, the talent has never been the concern. The guy looks like he was built in a lab.
It's the throwing part.
Don't. It's a throwing part. It's the staying on the field part. It's just little things.
Yeah,
little
no, staying on the field more than anything. You got to be on the field. You have to be available. So we'll see what happens. But yes, this is a concern. Let's just hope there's plenty of time for him to heal up.
Anthony, please, 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 please stay on the field. Jacob, I'm going to come back to you because you're the one who brought up this next set of news. There's a bunch of receivers. This happens all the time. Every year it feels like they're sitting out saying, I am not playing until I get a little bit more money, until I sign another deal. And the 4 players that you'd mentioned very well to point out are Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper. All of these guys, huge deals in fantasy, huge deals to their team. Is anyone in particular or in general, is this kind of upsetting to you in fantasy? Will this make any impact, or do you need to see this last a lot longer? When does it really come into a factor for you?
Months down the road, I would say. I think it's something where these guys are seeing all these other wide receivers get paid and they want their money, and I don't blame them. It's crazy what they're missing out on and willing to give up for that extended contract, because if they sit out these next 3 days, these mandatory mini camps that are starting, it's a $100,000 fine. So that just goes to show. Look at the thumbs up.
Hey, you didn't even mean to do a thumbs up that time, and it still does it. And I'm doing one right now, and it won't give it to me. Never mind. Continue. If you're watching, if you're listening not on YouTube, then you don't get the joke.
Over your head. But yeah, it's not surprising these guys are sitting out. They want their big contracts. Other receivers are getting big contracts. And it's the pointing finger. It's the waiting game. I think whoever waits the longest will be the most financially benefited from it. So I think that's what CeeDee Lamb has been kind of doing. That Justin Jefferson piece was the first one to fall, and now they're all kind of just waiting a little bit.
Jesse, any of your players on your baseball team sitting out games trying to get a new contract?
Not yet. No divas so far. I know that is definitely your wheelhouse though, right? That's what gets your juices flowing, Andrew, the diva wide receiver.
I own a lot of these guys in some leagues. So, yeah, absolutely. Go out and get you a bag, act up, do whatever you want. Speaking of acting up, holy cow, Darren Waller. Well, he's retired now officially because he was dragging it on for all off season saying, I'm thinking about it. I might retire, whatever. And then finally retired, but he released this weird rap song that was clearly a cry for help, which I heard ends with him getting stabbed in the back by someone who's clearly supposed to be Kelsey Plume, who is his ex-wife. And I've heard it just terrible acting and terrible singing. But Darren Waller is gone. I mean, Jesse, should we just have a memorial for Steven? Because that was his guy last year, and it will not have the option again.
Yeah, I think the kids call it cringe. That video, right? Am I right, Andrew?
Yeah,
I mean,
you're onto it. Yeah.
I'm trying to learn the lingo, but yeah, I couldn't actually watch more than like 15 seconds of it, just because what is happening. I was like, is he wearing his high school letter jacket? That feels like a cry for help too. If you're a grown man that played in the NFL wearing your high school letter jacket, I think that's a little bit weird as well. Or maybe it was just some designer thing. But no, the whole thing was strange and but the metaphors, Andrew, right? I mean, none of the art is good, but the metaphors are strong.
The big metaphor, the chick who clearly looks like his wife stabbing him in the back. What could that mean? We'll find out later. Jacob, I'm going to let you take this last bit of news and give me your analysis on it, and then we got to get rolling into some stuff. But it's hype season. It gets you some info and that speaks to your point and your preconceived notions and run with it. And I'm getting some of that here. Falcons head coach Raheem Morris on Bijan Robinson. I mean, it's all good stuff, but he recently said, Bijan, you get the ball to Bijan as much as you can in as much ideal situations as you can. All this stuff we're hearing about Bijan, is it news or is it noise?
Oh, it's news at this point. There's too much smoke now. And I'm not biased at all with owning him in Dynasty. So No, it was last week too that he was comparing his role to Christian McCaffrey's role. So, I mean, we already had high praises for the guys coming into this year. I think he's one of few that could take over that RB1 throne. What better year than now?
Heck yeah. And I guess, again, you own him, then it's big news.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
no one can have him anymore unless they want to pay for it all. And he's now the RB1. Bijan Robinson, please do it for us. And actually, I think Bijan might be coming up later on one of these segments. So let's get into that. Strength of schedule. All righty. It's the strength of the schedule you have and how much weight it can lift. So the strength of schedule is something that's really important every year. The way I like to think about it and what it means for your team is it's how difficult or easy the defenses that your fantasy players are going to play against. And instead of getting your players drafted, and then after week 1, you look at your player, their matchup, and you go, oh, that's a red matchup against the Jets. I don't want that one. And they're like, crap. Well, next week will be better. And then it's not. It's red again. It's a bad matchup. And then it's, again, another bad matchup. So what Steven did was phenomenal. And what a lot of places do is they go and they look ahead at the strength of schedule. Look at what they were like last year. I believe some of that info gets updated to be present to like some changes and shifts that happened. But basically, you look ahead at the strength of schedule of players. So when you're upset that your players keep playing against really good defenses, you already know. Like this will drastically change a lot of stuff. And I've got some other variables and layers to get into. But Jesse, you're the one who brought up this topic. So what made you really want to get into this, especially this time of year?
I just think this is one of those things that Steven pushed me towards years ago is having an understanding of who these guys are going to play. We've talked a little bit this offseason about, for the Texans are a really good example. If you went back and you looked at their season, there weren't a lot of people saying CJ Stroud is about to have an amazing season. Go ahead and put Tank Dell and Nico Collins onto your starting lineup right away. But those things kind of, it almost happened because if you looked at their strength of schedule, they had one of the easiest schedules in the league just by win-loss record. And a lot of times when you are looking at these teams with bad win-loss records, it's because they're not very good defensively. So they give up a lot of passing yards. They give up a lot of rushing yards. They give up targets to tight ends. I think all those things are kind of fascinating. And Steve was the one that kind of brought analytics up for me and showed me that these kind of things can be really important. He also, just a shout out for him, he does this strength of schedule thing as the year goes on.
Mm-hmm.
And he does the early season schedule and looks at guys that you should draft right away. Because, if you draft them early in the season and they have a bunch of green matchups right away, the chances are they're going to look really good, which makes their value go up. And then you can move that guy and you have flexibility to do some things. So he just taught me a lot about it. And it's also, like it's something that you're factoring in, especially in redraft, like all the time, right? Is this a green or a yellow or a red matchup? So when you see some of these teams that are like over half their games are red matchups, that's actually kind of a red flag, right? And that is a factor. And maybe that's a tiebreaker for some of these, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, or tight end choices.
Yeah, and to that point where you said Steven does this all year, I know Jacob and myself and AJ will go, and Steven will go out and get buys and sells throughout the season. And especially towards playoff time, we look 7-8 weeks ahead sometimes of when the playoffs are going to happen. And we're like, look, if you think you are for sure in the playoffs, go get these guys who have great schedules ahead of time, strength of schedule. And if you might not make it, here's some dudes who have a good strength of schedule immediately so that you don't just miss the playoffs entirely. Jacob, how much does strength of schedule shift stuff for you? How much does this change your perspective, especially in redraft early on in the offseason?
It's a good way for me to split hairs, but I don't put too much stock into strength of schedule, if I'm being honest. I think it's a good tool, but defensive turnover is kind of crazy in the NFL year over year. You never know what's going to happen with the team secondary or with their front seven, how they're going to change their defensive schemes going into that next season based on who they're playing or just overall based on their new game plan or the new players they have coming in. There's just a lot of turnover, especially on the defensive side, and defensive coordinators change a lot and head coaches change a lot. And that changes a lot of the way that games are played. So it's nice to look at, to get an idea of how things are going to pan out, but don't let this be the end all be all. There's a lot that can change as the season goes on. Goes for the offensive side of the ball too, but
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love what you're saying about it's about splitting hairs. It's not like if he has a bad strength of schedule, this player's doomed. As
Yep.
you like you said, there is a lot of turnover. It is definitely something to consider. And that's why I went some research on sharpanalysisfootball.com, which is Warren Sharp's page. And I looked at just some general strength of schedule for the entire team. And I was trying to think out like who's going to win a lot of games, who's going to lose a lot of games, and what's their schedule looking like that way, because the teams who win a lot of games, not only they're going to score a lot of touchdowns, but they're also their running backs might get used a little bit more. And the teams that are not going to win a bunch of games and they kind of stink and their schedule's hard, they might have to throw a whole bunch more. So I try to merge the two. We'll get there when we get there, but we're going to first go over our initial winner of the strength of schedule. One guy near and dear to Jacob's heart is one Amari Cooper of the Browns. Currently says, not going to play because I know that strength of schedule is so easy. I don't need to practice. Jacob, why is he a winner for you? And what does this mean for you and Amari Cooper?
Yeah, despite the offseason stuff going on, heading into the season, I'm a big fan of his strength of schedule. He's got the 8th best schedule for wide receivers heading into 2024, but it's actually the best if you're looking at PFF's strength of schedule metric. So while the Browns have one of the tougher schedules in the league, it's very beneficial for wide receivers this year. And last year they were good with receivers. They had the most plays per game last year. The Browns actually led the league in air yards last year. Mr. Flacco has a lot to do with that, but
yeah, he does.
Deshaun Watson can be just fine. But Cooper's been the wide receiver 9 and wide receiver 18 in his 2 years as a Cleveland Brown. That's great finishes. Both are well above the ADP that he's been at in those 2 years. And this year he's going at wide receiver 29 because why? I have no idea.
We're bored. He's so boring.
I guess he is. I guess Amari Cooper is a little boring, but I don't
Cleveland's boring. I'm sorry, Jacob. The city, not much for me there.
I know. But Cooper,
the color brown. Your team, your team name is a color.
Okay, I hate brown. The color
All right,
brown.
so I figured it out. I figured out why he's wide receiver 29.
Hey, Andrew, they're getting new face masks though.
Oh, yes,
white.
Yes,
yeah, they do look better than if you're looking on YouTube, that ugly brown face mask that Cooper has, just imagine it in white. It's so much cleaner.
It is cleaner.
So much better. But yeah, I don't have concerns about Cooper. I think people are just really don't like Deshaun Watson and they don't like the Cleveland Browns and they're associated with negativity and subparness, and that's fair. They've earned that. But I think Cooper can be fine. He averaged 17.6 points per game with Deshaun Watson. That's with over 8 targets per game. And again, wide receiver 18 last year, wide receiver 18 in points per game. And that includes one game where he played 32% of snaps. So ADP at wide receiver 29. I have him at wide receiver 14. Insane value, really good strength of schedule. And the playoff strength of schedule is really, really good.
Jesse, what if I told you that not only is it a good strength of schedule for wide receivers, but I also told you the Browns have the 3rd most difficult schedule in the NFL season. So they're going to play a bunch of really hard teams, the 3rd hardest schedule going forward. Does that get you a little excited for Mr. Amari, even if it's in Cleveland?
Hold on. They're playing the 3rd toughest schedule?
They have a tough schedule, but it's good for receivers.
They're playing teams that are going to win a lot of games. However, they don't defend the receiver position well, or they give up a lot of receiver fantasy points.
No, I fully agree with this one. I think that Jerry Jeudy is being underrated. I think Elijah Moore is being underrated. Njoku's is like, people like him, but he's going to look good as well. So I think that this is not a homer thing. I think Jacob is onto something here. I think that his squad is kind of being undervalued, and I'm going to be targeting a lot of Browns.
Vegas likes
some of this, because of some of this information coming in. I think, come on, Watson. Like, it's time to rebound. You know, it's time for him to take off. You just think about some of the plays he made those first couple of years in Houston. It's like, come on, the talent is there. Let's get it together here.
And even if he doesn't, if you like Joe Flacco, just wait till you see Jameis Winston.
Absolute bombing it downfield for no one's the benefit of himself, loving to see that football fly through the air, no matter who catches the football. Yep. Jameis Winston just wants to sling it. I had to write a Jerry Jeudy post for our team previews. Go out and check out those team previews on our Instagram page. They're excellent. Get you prepped for the season. And I had to write one for the receivers, and that included Jerry Jeudy. And I had to say something nice about Jerry Jeudy, which I wasn't prepared for that. Not that I don't like Jerry Jeudy, but I was ready to go write that little blurb of like he's there, but what else do you want me to say? And I really think Jerry Jeudy could be a nice sleeper going into this next season. Jesse, I'll let you go ahead and take this next one, because a guy that you are into because of his strength of schedule, and I think a lot of people are into, Jordan Love up there in Green Bay. Tell us a little bit about this man's strength of schedule as a winner.
Yeah, so this is an interesting one because I'm not a huge Jordan Love guy, and I never really have been. But I think this is an example, kind of that splitting hairs idea, where it's like I'm kind of on the fence. I've seen I like the weapons, I like all these. Maybe I saw him really looking like he's taking a leap forward towards the end of the season, and then they come in. This is low hanging fruit. If you look at Steven's QB strength of schedule rankings, Green Bay's number one for quarterbacks. Between week 1 and week 9, it's almost all green matchups with a couple of yellows sprinkled in there before their bye week. I mean, that is exactly kind of what you're looking for an early season, get a few wins out of the way. And yeah, I don't know. I like the weapons there. I think that he's trending. And that makes me nervous sometimes because I wasn't super high on him out of college, but I do think that they've developed him. Casey's whole thing, he would joke all the time that he looks like Aaron Rodgers when he throws, but he just isn't actually accurate, right?
I get those small things, those little things.
Yeah, but like just the way that he throws off of different platforms and everything else, they're doing something there in Green Bay to teach that. And when the accuracy started coming together towards the end of last season, that I think that is exciting. So I think for me, I wasn't the reason I have him there as my guy for this is, obviously number one strength of schedule, Green Bay on Steven's, very early rankings. But also for me, it was kind of like I'm kind of on the fence. I don't know. And now I'm like, sure, I'll go for it. I'll take Jordan Love in one of these drafts for sure.
Yeah. Last year's quarterback 5, by the way.
Right.
Oh, also their running back strength of schedule is the worst amongst most metrics. So to benefit him even more, they should be passing a lot and running maybe a little bit less. So a little knock to Josh Jacobs.
Love it.
We love to hear that. And I think Jordan Love was one that I got to the show sheet last, ironically. Well, I got my guys in last. I made the show sheet, so I got to it first. I could have changed it. I should have changed it on you guys because I like this one too. And significantly because I was a little worried about Jordan Love. His touchdown percentage and his efficiency and a lot of his points scored came from touchdowns last year. He wasn't throwing for that many yards in a lot of these big games he had. And so it was concerning. I'm like, can he repeat this? Can he do this? Well, if he has a good strength of schedule, heck yeah. Like this is the exact kind of, like Jacob said, I'm splitting the hairs. I'm not sure how I feel about Jordan Love. Like I didn't think he was bad, but could he be top 5 again? Maybe with a good strength of schedule, that might make me lean that way a little bit more. So yeah, I absolutely love me some Jordan Love. And I also love me one guy that I did not think would ever be fantasy relevant again. But lo and behold, the Moss Man, the man who grows on rocks, will not go away because now he was growing on a rock in Cincinnati with the Bengals. And he's their starting running back. And it's as if nobody cares. Now, there is also absolutely Jesse's guy there who this also benefits with the good strength of schedule. With Chase Brown, but I'm trying to get the ADP pulled up. Zach Moss is climbing a little bit right now, is the RB 26 in underdog drafts. But yeah, Zach Moss has an incredibly easy strength of schedule. Let me see, get it pulled up right here because I have to flip between 17 different things. He has got the 9th easiest running back schedule, but I also really liked pairing that with Joe Burrow getting back. So I think this Bengals offense is a little bit undervalued, but also they have the 6th easiest schedule as a team. So they're playing bad teams next year. They're projected to win a lot of football games. They're going to score a lot of touchdowns. And so I kind of figured Zach Moss will fit right in that mold of a dude who, no one's excited to see that name. The Bengals were kind of meh last year, and they're going to win a lot of games, and he's got an easy strength of schedule. Yes, please. Jesse, does this get you more excited for Chase Brown? Are you into the Zach Moss, or are you only into Chase Brown? What are you feeling here?
I kind of like the handcuff. I don't think either of them are that expensive. And so, again, they were both players that were kind of on my radar. So these are affirmations, so I like it. I'm into it.
Do you have him in our Dynasty League? Just asking for a friend.
Brown. Yeah, I do have Brown.
No. I was talking about Zach Moss.
No, I don't have Zach
No,
Moss.
Zach Moss is untouchable in our dynasty league. That's
Oh, doggone it.
Yeah.
See, this is the issue with
I've
having a
looked.
podcast of the fantasy players you want, because there's some guys on here I want to trade for that did not end up on this list, unfortunately. Jacob, what are your feelings of Mr. Zach Moss? Do you want to get in, or are you kind of afraid?
No, I like Zach Moss, and I'm one of those guys that doesn't really like Chase Brown, so I'm a fan of the strength of schedule winner even more. Zach Moss is going to be on the field a lot. He was one of the highest graded, if not the highest graded, pass blockers last year at the running back position. Some protection that Joe Burrow could use, so he's going to be on the field when it matters most. Chase Brown, I saw, was on the field for like 3 such situations where they actually asked him to block.
He
terrible. He
cannot block anything to save it. He can't hit ad blocker. He can't figure that out either on the internet.
They saw that with Moss being able to fill that void, and I think that means he's going to be on the field a lot more. He's the goal line guy. He should be getting the ball a lot between the 20s. I'm a fan. I think he's very cheap in ADP, and he's one of those guys that are going in those later 20s at the running back position that could sneak their way into the top 12, and it wouldn't be all that surprising.
Yeah, so Zach Moss, big fan. He's going to do big things and be the most boring guy around and not make a ton of money, but he's fantasy relevant. Before we move on to our family-friendly fallers, Jesse, there's some honorable mentions you think you might have had for some more winners of strength of schedule?
Yeah, I can just rapid fire a couple thoughts looking again at all of this data that Steven is providing. Steven made Javonte Williams the kind of cover guy for the running back strength of schedule because the Broncos have the second easiest running back schedule. And then what's interesting is this is where this data comes in handy is you go to quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends, and they have one of the toughest.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to need to run the ball. They better figure out how to run the ball. So Javonte Williams is a guy that I think we're too low on because we kind of forget that he was playing with he was still recovering from a knee injury last year, and he looked pretty good. So he's a guy I'm excited about. You talked about Najee Harris in past weeks as maybe like a dynasty buy. And I really like that Steelers strength of schedule. They happen to also play the Broncos, who they may just run all over because we're not very good, right away there at the beginning of the season. So I like Najee Harris. And then the other one that stood out to me was the playoff ones. You kind of look at the end of the list and you see just a streak of greens, and you're kind of going, I don't know if these guys will be all that good down the stretch at stopping the pass. So both Aaron Rodgers and Brock Purdy have kind of a very easy playoff schedule. And again, Aaron Rodgers wasn't really a target for me. But as I continue to he continues to pop up in all of these really interesting, like Steven talked about last week or the week before, where there's a lot of value at where he's being drafted cheap too. And to have a very, a really easy playoff schedule. He's definitely on my radar now. So that's why this data helps with stuff like that.
Yeah. He's one of those guys you can pair. If you want to take the shot on someone like Jaden Daniels earlier or early-ish in your draft, pair him with someone like Rodgers that we've seen success from before, and it gives you kind of that nice little safety blanket.
I like that.
Yeah, and you add what we talked about this week in terms of like quarterback-friendly fantasy point scoring strength of schedule, and the fact that Aaron Rodgers their team's projected to do well this year with a lot of wins. And Steven pointed out last week with a great post that wins equals usually a lot of fantasy points. Well, we're also pointing out here that his strength of schedule is easy for quarterbacks. There's a lot of stuff lining up right now for Mr. Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. Jacob, did you have any honorable mentions you wanted to shout out?
I do not have any honorable mentions to shout out.
Oh, good, because I got one and I gotta say it. I gotta say it. Bijan Robinson, gentlemen.
Yeah.
He's got the 5th. Oh, no, that was my Mr. Zach Moss stuff. Let me pull up my RB strength schedule. Oh, no, I got it right. Atlanta Falcons, the 5th easiest running back strength of schedule for fantasy points. So very fantasy-friendly schedule. But not just that. I've got this Warren Sharp thing pulled up, and they made a great little chart here. It goes like top to bottom of the strength of schedules of all these teams. And one team that is like super high, far away from everyone near them, who has like by far the easiest schedule this year, is the Atlanta Falcons. So not only do they have an incredible running back strength of schedule, not only do they have an incredible offseason for Bijan with all this fun news, but they're going to play teams that aren't so great because that division's terrible. Bijan's going to get a lot of run, just like that guy up there in San Francisco or down there. We went to the maps for that one. Can confirm. Did we confirm down there? I don't remember the geography outcome of all this.
Yeah, it's elevation. That's where you started getting messed up. You were trying to make it longitude, latitude, things like that. If they say down there, it's elevation. That's why,
Well, how about compared to Atlanta?
Up here in Denver, we can talk down to everybody else, right? Down, you guys down there where you're at. We're up here in Denver.
Literally up on a mountain.
That's
you guys are staring down at us.
Mile high.
Exactly. I love it. But some things I'm not going to love as much is some of these fallers.
Losers.
That lose. No, Jacob, you can't say that and us get monetized on YouTube. Stop it. Stop it. No, these fallers who happen to have some unfortunate schedules heading their way. And one guy that I guess Jacob is willing to deem a loser. Jacob, why are you being so mean to Joe Mixon right now? Why is he a loser?
And this is why I prefaced not letting strength of schedule be the end-all be-all, because I do actually like Joe Mixon this year, but he was not a winner from strength of schedule. He's got a rough playoff schedule. They have the fourth hardest schedule for running backs based on points allowed coming into the season. And they're middle of the road based off PFF strength of schedule rating. So the playoff schedules, the Dolphins, Chiefs, Ravens, they were all top half of the league at defending the run. It's not great. And the Ravens are that week 17 matchup, and they were 7th best. So a lot can change between now and week 17, but as it currently looks, his strength of schedule is not great, but he's a guy that lives off volume. He should get a lot of volume. He's not very efficient. He actually worse yards per carry than Devin Singletary last year, and Singletary's last year was actually better than anything Mixon's done since 2018. So it's interesting. He lives off volume.
You're not allowed to say anything bad about Devin Singletary. This is
he's great.
Devin Singletary.
That was respect to Singletary right there. He is very overlooked. They probably could have just kept him there and got exactly what they're going to get out of Mixon. But we'll see. We'll see. I think he's going to be a touchdown machine. He should be really good in this offense, but the strength of schedule doesn't look so great to end the year.
I actually have to dwindle on that because not that I would ever doubt him, but Devin Singletary might have just recently come out and started talking about how he thinks he's just as good of a playmaker or running back as Saquon Barkley. And I'm not saying he's not, because I wouldn't disrespect him. Jesse, I wouldn't say that. But I don't know, Joe Mixon, do you think he could do Devin Singletary things, even though he's way up there on like the Pantheon, Mount Olympus? Do you think Joe Mixon could maybe be some Devin Singletary even in this bad strength of schedule?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that he does a lot in the passing game too. So that's one where these numbers, I don't know. And then the early season doesn't actually look that bad.
No, early season's fine. So he's one of those guys that might be a sell high for us mid-season. Yeah. We got a long ways to go till we get there, but
so we'll see what happens there. But I'm not completely out on Joe Mixon. But yeah, I do think the late season, when you got the Chiefs, the Ravens, maybe even the Dolphins might be a playoff team too. Just bang, bang, bang right there at the end.
Yeah.
That might be rough. But yeah, I think, maybe this is one where you keep them early and then sell them late.
Mm-hmm. It's especially because you're gonna see how things pan out with that wide receiver room. Maybe they throw more to, keep Mr. Diva happy out there on the outside.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll be interesting.
Diva Diggs. And no, I'm not trying to add on to Mr. Devin Singletary, but I also just saw that apparently Tyrone Tracy is taking some snaps with the ones early in this offseason. Not that Devin Singletary, he just needed a break.
Yeah, Damian Pierce is getting work too. Whatever.
I love the offseason. Another guy who we are slightly concerned about, and this is again one I really wanted to jump on and snatch up. Jesse has Justin Herbert and all of the Chargers' young wide receivers as some potential concern. Jesse, tell us more.
Yeah, so this is kind of a two-parter. You look at the schedule that they have, and it's a rough schedule for the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, and the tight ends. And then it's actually a pretty decent schedule to run the ball against. And I don't know which of those running backs is going to be the guy, but I kind of like all of them, because Harbaugh likes to run the ball. He wants his team to be physical. I think it's going to be really important for him to try and establish kind of like a culture of physicality with his team. And especially when you look at the strength of schedule. And then, I don't think Ladd McConkey is just going to show up and be this like alpha number one, catching all the balls every week type of player. I think that he really needs complementary wide receivers. and these other guys are not really that experienced. So it's one of those deals where just the more I think about it, I really liked all the offseason moves for Justin Herbert, and I made him a winner. But now it's like, man, I think he's going to be handing off the ball a lot when you start looking at this schedule. So, yeah, concerns for me around those young wide receivers coming into form when they have to start off the season with such difficult defensive backfields.
I love it. Keep dropping Justin Herbert's ADP down.
Is this
No,
not a
it's-
concern to you, Jacob?
It's a concern because like Jesse's saying, this team it's going to look a lot different with their new head coach and new offensive coordinator. They are going to want to run the ball more, and if you've got a hard schedule, running the ball is going to keep you in a lot more games. So it just benefits what they already want to do, and what they want to do is not going to be very great for fantasy. It's not going to be very great for your eyes, but
no, because it's going to be like a 3-headed committee too, and
yeah.
like none of the running backs will even look great. But
So
he's
what's
going to
your
win
strategy
games.
in
He's going to win
Dynasty there?
games because he's just good. What's
Yeah. Say you have a best ball dynasty league, Jesse. What would you do with those running backs?
that? I mean, you have to own all of them. That's
Exactly.
your only choice is to own every single one and get a nice deal on Vidal in the rookie draft. You know. So yeah, I literally have no idea which one of them is going to come out of it. It
Mhm.
seems to me like J.K. Dobbins is just too talented to just really disappear into nothingness. But we have seen players because of injuries and other factors getting fat. You know, that's how I think of some of those running backs just got real fat and became
Are you calling J.K. Dobbins fat? Is that what's happening
no.
right
But
now?
I'm just trying to think of other running backs that I really liked in college. Was really excited about them, and then they, just got fat or hurt a lot. And
Eddie
never,
Lacy.
yeah, this
Eddie
is a full on Eddie Lacy
This is exactly what that is.
conversation. I'm glad Jake's right with me. That's awesome.
Did you follow Deontay Foreman much at the time? I know he was a big running back prospect, and he's in a famous Achilles tear out of Texas, Mr. Foreman.
A famous Achilles terror.
Yeah, he's like the only guy who's come back and done anything off of an Achilles injury. Is I got to tell you, I still own Cam Akers in our dynasty league. I'm hoping he'll sign somewhere.
Cam Akers, man,
Ugh.
that he might fall into that list of high profile guys that just
Yeah.
never really panned out. But we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. And just to put the cherry on top of your Chargers conversation, they have the 10th easiest running back strength of schedule, to your point, the 32nd best. So like literally the worst wide receiver schedule, and the team that is the second easiest NFL schedule. So they're going to play a lot of bad teams, is still the Chargers. So they're going to get ahead. They might win some ball games by just running the ball and never throwing it.
Yeah.
Go ask JJ McCarthy about Penn State and and see what Harbaugh will do sometimes.
Was it 32 straight runs or something like that? It was in the 30s. I remember it was.
Every single one was successful.
Yeah.
Just about.
Just ridiculous. It's not fair. Well, I'm gonna go near and dear to Jesse's heart with this one as well. I'm a little bit concerned about the Broncos wide receivers, especially like it's kind of like your Chargers one. There's some young guys there. Cortland Sutton, I've got hopes out for him, but they've got the second hardest schedule for fantasy wide receivers, and they don't really have. Now, the saving grace is they have a decently difficult real life NFL schedule, which if they play a lot of really good defenses, like maybe that's why they're good teams. Like I just see this being problematic. It's going to be really hard for Bo Nix, rookie, to probably get some rapport going with a lot of these guys as the season goes on. And I was recently really trying to talk myself into Troy Franklin. Again, I'm doing these team previews and I'm looking at the depth chart, and there's no one there. And I said he found himself on a team where his quarterback played. There's a lot of rapport there. And I think Bo Nix is just the kind of quarterback he is to throw to a guy like Troy Franklin, who gets really open, gets open quick, not really a Sutton guy. So I'm trying to get excited for it. Jesse, I'll let you take your opinion on it, especially as our local Broncos expert. I know you're a big Bo Nix guy. I'm pretty concerned that, again, go back to Jacob's thing of like splitting hairs. Like I didn't love any of these situations. I'm not super into this offense. Does this take them off your page, or are you still in on Bo Nix and the Broncos wide receivers?
I think they're cheap, so that doesn't completely take them off. But, the thing that is concerning for me when you look at this schedule for the Broncos is if you just think of like a culture of toughness and general low scoring games and who are the teams that you think of? You think of the Seahawks. You think of the Steelers. You think of the Bucks. You think of the Jets. That's their first 4 games, guys.
Oh
Those
no.
are all just very defensive-minded coaches and teams, and that every year they produce good defenses. And so, yeah, no, I am concerned. I do think that there's value plays there, because they are really cheap. Cortland Sutton costs you almost nothing to get a number 1 receiver on a team, that's how we saw Nico Collins be good. So he came up in the next Nico conversation, but yeah, no, I'm concerned. This is going to be difficult out the gate. I do really like Bo Nix. There has been a culture change here. There's been a lot of really positive media coming out of camp about Bo Nix and about just what Sean Payton is like now. Like, there was this huge Russell Wilson monkey on his back, apparently. And now that he has that off, he's just in a great mood all the time. And like,
He was
media
just
has all this
grumpy.
access. So it's that's the vibe coming out of camp. But no, this is a little bit of a vibe killer. I can totally agree with you on this one, Andrew.
I love that you mentioned that Sean Payton's just happy that Russell Wilson isn't there with his 12 bathrooms or whatever, asking for his office.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. Jacob, any particular feelings? Are you willing to still divulge yourself in some Broncos wide receivers at cost? Or is this making you get out on them?
I try to stay away from mediocre to bad players on bad teams with bad schedules. So it's not.
Hey, I was just
red across the board.
I was just telling him how excited I am about the Browns, and you see what he does back to me, Andrew.
Yeah,
I'm all in. White face mask. Give me some Jerry Jeudy. And then he just said bad players, bad team, bad schedule.
I like Cortland Sutton, but
I
think the upside is just it's limited.
I look at this schedule and now I see where that 5.5 over under is coming from, because there's not a ton of wins on that schedule considering where a lot of these teams are.
That's tough.
So we'll see what happens. We get a bye week before the Colts. I think that's a win.
Getting to play the Colts might be a win if Anthony can't stay on the field.
It might be Joe Flacco.
Who's the backup?
Joe Flacco.
Heck yeah, it's Joe Flacco.
No, is he really? And
Yeah.
you had this infatuation with him, and now he's in Indy. That's awesome.
I got them both in our dynasty league, and that is going to be such a giant shift in mindset as fantasy players. If you go from AR to Joe Flacco,
who are the most different players in the
man.
NFL? Those might be the 2 most different guys in the NFL. I love it.
But it ended up like Deshaun Watson, Joe Flacco. Like I do not know how they end up. Like I guess Zach Wilson and Joe Flacco in New York made sense. I'm all in. Michael Pittman in fantasy. If he gets Joe Flacco, it's to the moon. All the Colts to the moon. Yeah. Gentlemen, I'll let you get another shot in. Any honorable mentions for some losers or fallers?
Yeah.
In the strength of schedule category.
I've got a little duo of fallers. It's the quarterback and wide receiver combo for the Steelers, whichever one that might be.
Yeah.
Both have bottom 5 schedules. And like you mentioned earlier, the running back schedule is good. And also, like you mentioned earlier, they're one of those teams that like to just keep it low scoring, ground and pound, make that game go real slow. So it's not a great schedule for Mr. George Pickens if that's who you're looking at for a breakout season.
Yeah. And I agree with that. And then I actually had one other winner that I forgot about, Andrew. I don't know who else I would call. What other honorable mentions I would do for fallers? I think we hit those pretty well. I think Jatavian Sanders, the tight end for the Panthers, is somebody to keep an eye on. They will have the easiest schedule in the NFL. I think Bryce Young is going to take a step forward. That is my.
You can't take a step back.
No, I guess when you're at the bottom of the hill, the only place to go is up. But if you look at that early season schedule, it's the best in the league, and it'll give Jatavian Sanders a chance to be open, and it'll give Bryce Young a chance to check down to a big athletic tight end target. So I think he's a sneaky rookie tight end looking at the schedule that kind of popped to me, because the Panthers have the second easiest schedule for tight ends.
I like that one. They had don't forget about those random like top 10 finishes from Hayden Hurst and even Tommy Tremble these past couple of years. So.
No, I'm telling you that you got to keep an eye on those types of things. But You guys just such a buzzkill with the Broncos. I'm just like, so I was ready to go put money on. I'm like, we're winning at least 6 games. Come on. And then I look at this thing and it's just all these red
Well,
all the way
Jesse,
across.
you just got Javante from me in Dynasty, and that's like the only good thing they have going is an easy running back schedule.
That's true. So that did look good. So like I
It's not
said,
going to
that
be
was
for
the
Javante though.
I got one combo of good and bad. And so on the good side, we'll start there. Stay positive. The Dolphins running back schedule is the 4th best in the league, and they also have the 8th easiest real life NFL schedule. So they're gonna play a bunch of not great teams, and the running back schedule is easy. So I mean, if you're Raheem Mostert is way down boards in underdog drafts, and I just threw him way up in my rankings after seeing this and after thinking about it. And they could score a ton of touchdowns on the ground. And Jalen Wright might even get in on the shindig if they win by 40 points again. And I don't think this could take me down that far, but I don't know if it gives me a little bit of hesitancy and pause for like Jalen Waddle. They have one of the hardest wide receiver strength of schedule on top of they might not have to keep scoring in the 4th quarter. I mean, with as volatile of a wide receiver as Waddle can be, they have the 3rd hardest schedule. Jacob, does that I feel like we can't get scared for Tyreek, but does that scare you off Waddle a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good example of where like I don't draft Tyreek Hill because of a strength of schedule. Like he's still going to be great, but Waddle's one that you can definitely look at and kind of pick at because the schedule's rough, but also because like the guy waddles off of the field every other play, and
I see what you did there.
Yeah, it's brutal to watch, and that was a brutal pun, but it fit perfect. So we're rolling with it. But Waddle's strength of schedule is not why I'm worried about him. It's him staying on the field.
Andrew, I'm surprised in your news section you didn't talk about skinny Tua. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about fat guys.
Oh, that's right.
But Tua apparently came back and is just like thinned way out. I guess
the Lamar route.
I guess he got real fat for the Pro Bowl. I didn't realize that. Maybe it was the Pro Bowl in Hawaii?
Who cares?
I don't think it was. I think they moved it
yeah,
out
it was
of Hawaii.
Like it was Florida. It was like down in Orlando or something. Because I was gonna say maybe he went back to Hawaii and he was just eating with his like he probably has family there, right? And he's just like eating all this amazing food for several weeks before leading up to but no, it was in Florida. He has no excuses. So yeah, he apparently lost a ton of weight. His hair got bigger and his body got thinner. So yeah,
maybe it's an illusion.
Maybe, yeah, actually, it's like one of those mirrors.
It sounds like he's just been like starving on an island. If he hasn't got his hair in a while and he lost a bunch of weight.
Growing the hair out's really smart for him. That's more cushion for his head. I think that's perfect.
Ooh,
that's what he was missing.
Now we've got some deep cuts going on now. See, this is why you joined this podcast.
No, I didn't mention anything about the Tua stuff because it happened like 2 weeks ago. So I should have had it on the last show sheet. And actually I heard someone, I think it was Stephen Ruiz of The Ringer talking about it. And he hasn't been this skinny since college. And in college, he ran a little bit more than when he ran in the NFL. In his rookie year, he ran a little bit more than he has recently. So maybe it makes him a little bit more agile as a Tua can be. Yeah, a little agile guy there.
Fragile, agile. And he's going to be handing off the ball a lot if this strength of schedule is any indication. So yeah,
absolutely.
I think this is interesting.
Raheem Mostert to the moon. Well, gentlemen, cut me off if you have anyone else left, but I think that does it for us for the show. We got a whole bunch of good information and talk in there, and a lot of strength of schedule stuff. And if you want to see more just content like this, Steven's putting out some incredible stuff. Strength of schedule, QB wins equals fantasy points. Go check out our podcast if you want to hear it audibly, or if you want to see it visually through here. If you want to check it on Instagram, go check out the page at Fantasy Guides. Find us Fantasy Guides. Look it up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. You'll find us wherever. You can find Jesse at Debbie Rookie Watch if you want to follow some college stuff, which we're getting close, gentlemen. We're about a month away from college football, the game dropping. So that means it's right around the corner. You can go find Jacob at FG Rhodes FF if you want to get some of the content he's seeing and getting tagged in as well. And yeah, like I said, follow the main page. You can find me at Toysher_FG to see what nonsense I am up to. But I'm going to take us out of here. So, gentlemen, say goodbye to the friends at home.
Goodbye.
Peace.